I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm willing to work as hard as I can.
There is no past, there's no future, there's just this moment right here.
If I did that, if I can get through that, like, come at me.
Changing how I saw myself, like as a man, not just as an athlete.
It's okay that I struggle. It's okay. That's part of the deal. That's how I respond to it.
This is Limitless Athlete Podcast. I'm Tom Foxley, founder of Mindset Rx'd and your host. Today, I'm going to share with you the exact 4-step formula that I use to prep CrossFit athletes with their mindset so that every competition they go to, they can absolutely crush. Naturally, if I'm working with an athlete and I get to know them, there's things that I add on to make it more specific to them, little changes to this. But these are the foundational 4, the things that absolutely must happen. The thing is, most athletes, they're just relying on luck to perform at CrossFit competitions. Sometimes they turn up and they nail it. Sometimes they turn up and it's the worst competition of their life and they leave feeling frustrated and upset with themselves and disappointed in their poor performances. This is simply because they're not matching up with consistent inputs. Your mindset right now is just a product of everything that you've done in the past, which sounds kind of obvious to say, but we need to recognize that if I do things now, they're going to have a consequence on what I'm like in terms of my mindset in the future. So if I was just to eat a load of sugar now, that would have an effect on my metabolic state and that would affect the future. Similarly, if I think a bunch of things about failing and the worst way that this competition could go, and I really push against my competition nerves, that will have a negative effect on the way I perform as an athlete. So this is why so many athletes don't perform in competitions the way that they believe they could. They're relying on luck, and luck just isn't a strategy. So I developed these 4 strategies to combat this. The first one, flipping expectations into intentions. Way too many athletes go into a CrossFit competition just having expectations of how an event should go. They think that this is the way it should go because of all the training I've done in the past, but they don't actually realize that this is just an outcome they're hoping happens. And there's no basis for that in reality. What they need to be doing is focusing more on the intentions that they create about how the workout needs to go. It's similar to what I was saying before, just on a small level. It's inputs versus outputs. The step that you need to take first here is setting your goals for the competition. So say I want to finish on the podium. That's my goal. And then breaking that down into smaller and smaller steps. So maybe step 2 is thinking, okay, what is the next step in that? Okay, I need to average finishing, I don't know, 4th at each. Need to average out finishing 4th in each competition or in each event, sorry, and that will lead me to performing or to getting on the podium. And then you have to think, okay, what leads me to perform a point where I'll probably get 4th in each event, and then you just break it down from there. So maybe it's I want to hold such and such split time on my row, or I want to stick to singles on the clean and jerks because I know that that's the quickest way to get that many reps done. So you'll have those sets and reps and you'll have those inputs. And that's really the first thing to get clear about. When you go into each event, you want to have an exact criteria for success based on you and your metrics outside of anyone else's inputs. So you don't want to be racing other people unless you are getting really, really good at this. You want to have these foundations down of like, this is my game plan and this is how I'm going to stick to it. So that's strategy number 1. Flip your expectations into intentions. And obviously, sometimes you're not going to know the workouts before, but for all that you can, get these intentions done beforehand. The second step, or the second part of these foundational 4, is the next logical step here. And that's to flip these intentions, or to add into these intentions the character skills that you need to display to get there. When we think about your character or the ultimate input, that will be your character. Your character is the ultimate input that you have. This is made up of personality, which is somewhat fixed, and then the character skills that you develop and train intentionally. Ideally, you will have trained all these relevant character skills in the months leading up to the event. But even if you haven't, you can still get a bunch of progress here. Here's how. You look at each of those intentions that you've just created. And from that, you get the idea, this is the character skill that I need to display in order to display that. So if we use that rowing split example, I need to maintain a 145 split. Let's say that's very quick for you or for that length of time. What we need to do is maybe I'm going to identify the fact that I need to display grit at that point. It's grit that I need to display. That's what will work for me. And I'm just going to, in that moment, display as much grit as I possibly can by sticking to a 145 split. Similarly, but kind of at the opposite end of things, I need to display patience with these clean and jerks and not rush into doing doubles and triples because I know they'll redline me. I know they'll fatigue me. I know I've got a lot of reps to do and they're heavy. So that could be number 2. Obviously, I'm not saying the exact things, the exact movements that you need, but you need to get to know what you need. So at this point, you've got the intentions for how to make a workout absolutely nailed. And the second piece is what character you're going to display, because the character is the ultimate input. And if you display that character, I guarantee you'll feel fulfilled and satisfied and less frustrated with your workout or with the competition as a whole too. Third, the next step here is to mentally rehearse your events as much as physically possible. Visualization is the greatest tool that you're not using. Like, we know that when you visualize events, you have your mind is almost at a point where it's done the event before and it can push a little bit further, a little bit harder. Like, what you're doing here is you're removing some of the unknowns. And ideally here, what we want to be doing is embracing every single piece of difficulty that you can possibly embrace. You don't want to be shying away from this. You don't want to be imagining the event going easily. You want to be imagining the event being tough, realistically tough, but you overcoming that adversity. You almost want to, well, something I get some athletes do is imagine things going wrong and how they're going to overcome that, because then you pre-program the response in. So you essentially perform at your best in an environment which feels less threatening to you. For example, in your current training environment, the more threatening it feels, and the less hard you'll push because it feels vulnerable, it feels risky. So when visualizing events, what you're doing is you're putting yourself in the known. There's a part of your mind that goes, hey, I've been here before. It's all good. We don't need to stress out. We can go to a hugely potentially dangerous level of effort because I know I'm safe in this environment. Step number 4 is maybe the most controversial one here. And it's a complete flip in the way you want things and the way that most athletes are taught to approach competitions. And this is for actively hoping for failure and difficulty. It's very rare that this is going to be the absolute pinnacle of your career in terms of a CrossFit athlete. So the best thing that can possibly happen to you as an athlete is you try your hardest and you still fail, because in that failure, you will learn something in order to become better. The goal for you, I'm guessing, as you listen to this, is to grow and become better. You want to give your best in order to do that, and you want to get as much negative feedback as you can tolerate, because the goal is meaningful growth. It's not absolute success. And this is about your personal journey of improvement and growth. And if you do that, you will feel less frustrated, less disappointed at the end of a competition. The irony here is, the more you practice all these things, the more you hope for failure, the better you'll overcome it when it inevitably does happen, because it is part of competition, and the better you'll do within that. So those are your 4 steps to prepping your mindset effectively for your next CrossFit comp. I'm Tom Foxley. Find me on Instagram, which is @TomFoxley, and shoot me a message if you want to learn more about mindset training, and I'll speak to you very soon.